The year is 150 AD. You are a merchant, a Roman citizen. You have a business deal in Rome, and you're standing in Londinium, what the world will one day call London. The distance between you and Rome is 1,800 miles. No trains, no cars, no Google Maps. And before you even reach the first milestone on the road, three things are already trying to kill you. If you traveled in ancient Rome, here's what would kill you first. Now, before we get to the killers, let's understand what you're working with. The Roman Empire built 400,000 kilometers of roads. That number is almost impossible to wrap your head around. For comparison, that's enough road to go around the Earth 10 times. Built with no modern machinery, no GPS surveying, just Roman engineering genius and thousands of slaves. These roads were masterpieces, perfectly flat, perfectly straight, layered with gravel, sand, and giant stone slabs on top. Some of those roads still exist today. You can walk on them right now in Italy. And yet, despite all this infrastructure, traveling in ancient Rome was one of the most dangerous things a person could do. So, you're a merchant. You've packed your goods. You've said goodbye to your family. Because yes, some people genuinely never came back. Let's walk this road together. Killer number 1. You leave the city gates of Londinium at dawn. Smart move. Travelers always left at dawn because the rule was simple. If you're still on the road at night, you're already dead. Roman roads were safe inside major cities. The Roman military kept order there. But the moment you moved beyond the city walls and into the countryside, you entered a completely different world. The Roman Empire was enormous, and policing all of it, impossible. The military focused on borders and cities. The rural roads, the hundreds of miles between towns, were basically lawless. Bandits, called latrones in Latin, were not rare criminals. They were an organized profession. Entire gangs lived in forests and hills along major trade routes. They knew merchant schedules. They knew what cargo was valuable. The historian Apuleius, writing in 160 AD, described bandits attacking travelers so frequently that it was simply expected. Not shocking. Expected. Roman writers gave actual survival tips for travelers. Travel in large groups. Never alone. Hire armed guards if you can afford it. Don't display your wealth. Wrap your valuables in plain cloth. And if bandits do attack, give them everything. Your life is worth more than your cargo. The wealthy had it easier. They could hire ex-soldiers as escorts. But our merchant, a middle-class trader, you were on your own. And here's the real twist. Even Roman soldiers weren't safe off duty. There are documented cases of retired legionnaires being robbed and murdered on the same roads they once protected. So you've made it past the bandits. Barely. You're tired. You're hungry. Night is falling. You see a light ahead. A building. A sign. An inn. A taberna. Finally, safety. You have no idea what you just walked into. Roman inns, taberni or capponi, had a reputation so bad that respectable Roman citizens refused to use them. The philosopher Cicero, one of Rome's greatest minds, called Roman inns, and I'm translating loosely here, places where only the desperate and the foolish sleep. He wasn't wrong. Let me describe a typical Roman inn for you. One room, shared with strangers, sometimes 10 or 15 people you've never met. No private spaces. No locks on doors. The bed was a wooden plank covered in straw. That straw hadn't been changed in nobody knows how long. It was alive with fleas, lice, and bedbugs. The food? Technically edible. But the kitchen shared a wall with the stable, so your bread tasted vaguely of horse. The water came from whatever local source was nearest. In some regions, that meant lead pipes, because Roman plumbing used lead extensively. Historians now believe chronic lead poisoning was genuinely widespread in the Roman Empire. Some researchers have even argued it contributed to the cognitive decline of certain emperors. And disease. Typhoid, dysentery, malaria in warmer regions. These weren't rare, they were routine. Travelers who ate contaminated food or drank bad water could be dead within days. The Roman writer Horace, who actually documented his own journey on the Appian Way, described in food giving him such severe stomach problems that he couldn't continue traveling for 2 days. That was Horace, a famous, wealthy, well-connected Roman. Imagine what it was like for everyone else. And yet, people still traveled. Merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, diplomats. Because the alternative was never seeing the world at all. You survive the inn. You're sick, you're exhausted, but you're alive. You've made it to the coast. The Mediterranean Sea stretches out in front of you, blue and beautiful. You need to board a ship. This is where things get truly dangerous. The Mediterranean Sea was the highway of the ancient world, faster than land travel. You could cover in 2 weeks by ship what would take 2 months on foot. But the sea had rules, and it did not care about you. Rule 1. The sailing season was closed from November to March. Completely. Roman sailors called it Mare Clausum, the closed sea. Any captain who sailed in winter was either desperate, insane, or both. Why? Because Mediterranean winter storms could appear with zero warning and sink a fully loaded merchant vessel in under an hour. And shipwrecks weren't rare. Archaeologists have found over 1,600 Roman shipwrecks on the Mediterranean floor. That's just the ones we've found. Now here's what your ship actually looked like. No passenger cabins. None. You paid for cargo space, and you slept in that same cargo space. On the wooden deck. Under the open sky. If it rained, you got wet. If it was cold, you were cold. There was no kitchen. You brought your own food. If your food ran out, you went hungry. Pirates were also a very real concern. The Roman military had largely cleared the Mediterranean of pirates by 67 BC, but largely is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Pirates still existed. They targeted slow merchant vessels exactly like the one you're on. Here's a wild fact. A young Julius Caesar was actually kidnapped by pirates while sailing the Aegean Sea around 75 BC. They held him for ransom. He was reportedly so offended by the ransom amount they asked, he told them they were undervaluing him and demanded they ask for more. When he was eventually freed, he hunted them down and had every single one of them crucified. But you're not Julius Caesar. You're a merchant, and you've just survived the crossing. You step onto Italian soil. Rome is close now. A few more days on the road. And for the first time in weeks, you might actually make it. Here's the part nobody talks about. Despite everything, the bandits, the disease, the sea, millions of people traveled the Roman Empire every year. And most of them arrived. How? Because Rome had systems. Brilliant, sophisticated systems that were centuries ahead of their time. The Cursus Publicus, the Roman postal and travel system, was the world's first organized transportation network. Government officials could travel at 50 miles per day using relay stations with fresh horses every 10 to 15 miles. It was the ancient equivalent of a highway express lane. The hospitium system, a formalized culture of hospitality, meant that if you had connections, wealthy Romans were obligated by social law to house you, feed you, and protect you during your journey. Your host's reputation depended on it. And Roman towns along major roads had mansions, government-run rest houses that were significantly safer and cleaner than commercial inns. If you had the right papers, you could access them. The Roman traveler wasn't helpless. They were prepared. They carried letters of introduction. They traveled in groups. They knew which roads were safe and which weren't. They respected the sea's calendar. Travel in ancient Rome wasn't easy, but it worked. The Roman road network connected 30 million people across 3 continents, Europe, Africa, Asia, for over 400 years. That's not a failure of infrastructure. That's one of the greatest achievements in human history. Our merchant, if he was smart, if he was careful, if he was lucky, would have reached Rome in about 40 days from Londinium. Today, that same journey takes 2 hours and 35 minutes by plane. But I'd argue the 40-day version was more interesting. If you want to know what he found when he arrived in Rome, what the city actually looked like, smelled like, felt like, that's the next video. And trust me, Rome itself had its own list of things trying to kill you. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And drop in the comments, which of the 3 killers surprised you most? I'll see you in the next one.